I'm just weird like that. So
Could you want to mentally in a catatonic? What happens after you
I
get home?
just I feel like the one thing with comedy I think that ends up happening is like um it's a lot of, well, not only just comedy travel. Like I just got back from Ethiopia, so that's just any sort of travel. I kind of being in this place right now where I'm doing comedy full time. I think people, when you say comedy full time, it's a weird thing to say because full time for us does not mean I'm going to a job like I used to. So then it's like I'm doing these big elongated gigs. I'll be like, I'll either do a taping or I'll be on the road for like a college gig, or I'll be on the road for like a club gig that's like a weekend. And then you get back and then your life is kind of like, it slows down so quickly. And then that throws me into a, like, not like a tailspin, but it's more just like, okay, then I just isolate.
Could I put it in my own words just to say that you have a high of moving and constantly doing and things need to be done, and then when you come back there's this crash of
100%, yeah, especially when it's something really good. Like I remember when I came back from JFL, it was like, I mean, that was a little bit different because I was working full time, so there wasn't even an opportunity for me to crash. Now that I'm not working full time, like I got back from JFL Sunday and had to go to back to work on Monday, like but now it's kind of just one of those things where I get home and there's no obligation to do a lot of things. When I'm on the road, it's hard for me to focus on my emails. I mean, it's good to have a manager for that reason, but I honestly feel like it's not like I'm not doing enough to, like, I have a manager, but there's certain things that the manager I have is the type of manager apartment where like she only really takes a percentage of the things that she does for me, so I don't have to utilize her in other things, and I try not to, because it's like I'm not making big enough money for someone to be taking 10% of everything,
I dig it.
So like I understand with the bigger gigs, that's what she does. She gets me, we work on the bigger gigs together. But when I'm doing like club weekends, or I'm doing like, just short weekends, or like if someone pulls me to Milwaukee or like place like that, I'm maintaining that myself. So it's like, it's a little bit of, there's an organization, which I'm usually either really organized or super unorganized, which I'm learning apparently is ADHD. I truly do not, like, as a younger millennial, it's very hard for me, as a younger millennial and a medical professional, it puts me in this weird place of when we talk about ADHD and how I feel like there's a very big, I don't want to say overdiagnosis, because I don't know. It could be just they were underdiagnosing it for so long, but it feels like all of us are being told that we have it. But it was like, for me, it was pretty severe. And the things that I was describing to my therapist, she's like, no, that's not like anxiety. She's like, that's ADHD. Like you have task initiation issues. You have, ADHD paralysis. Like, and when I was learning these things, I was like, oh no, the things that she's describing is what I'm doing. And I've been associating it with anxiety. So that becomes over when it's like, okay, when I've too many people to message back or things like that, then I wait to do them all at once, which is kind of what happened when you got my other message. I will say the message you sent before that, I was in Ethiopia. Like like when you messaged me that one time, I was literally not in the country and not I didn't put like a big sign saying I'm going to Ethiopia for a month and a half, but it was just one of those things where, like I said, and that's just not for you, it's just for everything. Like I'm saying, across the board, it's very hard to get the schedule going, because then I was just talking about this with Connor Cowley, but another thing we run into in Chicago is, or any city really, is that women tend to be very booked. So it leaves a problem of, we have a difficult time getting to equally put everything together on every show. You know what I mean? Like as a producer, as we were just talking, as we were walking up here, as a producer, that's one of the hardest spots to fill if you lose, like, if we need to add another woman to the show, just because statistically there's just more male comics. So on top of that, as a female comic who deals with that, that just means that my schedule is harder to maintain, because, I'm not saying, oh my God, I'm so booked and busy. You have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where like people are always, it's just a problem of the nature of the fact that we just have a lot of men in the scene. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think that we were just talking to another person from another comedy scene. I think that really maintains everywhere, where it's just, there's very few regular female comedians that aren't getting crazy booked all the time, because if you're good and you're a female,
supply and demand.
Yeah. So it's just like, it makes it even harder to get back to everyone. I know I just spent 10 minutes explaining why I didn't get back to you, and that's crazy. That's the problem. That's weird that I did that. It's weird that I did that. I was like, oh, bitch, you just explained 10 minutes. I just gave you a philosophical answer to one question. Your question was literally like, hey, like, you didn't get back. Why? And I was like, oh, here, let me explain to you my mental health. And then let me explain to you how comedy works, bitch. And I was like, I spent a whole 10 minutes just trying to explain to you comedy.
Good. I love a guest that likes to talk. I would rather
not have an issue.
Good. I'd rather have this than.
I think every podcast I've ever been to, they've had to cut it down. they've had to cut it down.
So you've said a lot of things, and I'm really excited to dig into this. Starting with, you said a medical professional. You said you were what?
So I did nuclear medicine and radiation therapy for 4 years. I only stopped 2 years ago
because of comedy.
Yeah, kind of. It was reaching a standpoint where I was kind of going back and forth about it, and then once I did JFL, there was first off, I think I've discussed with lots of people, the feeling of doing something that you is so incredible to you, and then going back to your regular life. It was very hard. It was very hard to return to reality when I was in spaces with all of these amazing comedians that I love and respect. And even if I was there's only a few comedians that I actually got to be on shows with when I was at JFL, but still just being in the room and hanging out while Mark Maron is talking nearby and sitting around at the table while he's talking. He has no idea who I am, but he's pretty much talking to everyone at this point, or Jimmy Carr. It was so unique to be in that situation. And then my shows went well, and then I had such a good time just hanging out with all the comics. Literally, JFL feels like comedy summer camp. That's what it feels like. I think every festival feels that way. I started going to more festivals after that. JFL was my technical first festival. I had never done any festival before that, and then now I've done more festivals since then, and that's just a feeling out of any festival. I love comedy festivals for that reason, because you're just with a bunch of comedians, whether you know them or not, and it just becomes this whole hangout. So returning from that energy when it was that good, returning from that energy and going back to a healthcare setting, where you're dealing with very sick patients, and it's a nonstop thing, was just hard. It was and it's not that I don't love medicine. The one thing I love about medicine was the clinical aspect of it. I do love learning about medicine, but then at the same time, my patients. Those were two things. What I didn't like were my coworkers. I think most people who work in healthcare get beaten down into misery, and that sucks. Usually if you're in an allied health field, or nursing, anything that's pretty much not a doctor, I think you end up getting beaten down into. And I think I had such a rose-colored glass view of healthcare because I grew up around doctors. My dad's a surgeon. All the things I grew up around were showing me that medicine is this. I do, if you do well, you're gonna make money helping people. No one tells you about that. Healthcare is a business like anything else, and you can work with horrible higher ups. You can you work with horrible insurance companies. All that stuff is not given to you as a kid. So when I went into life thinking I was gonna be a doctor, that's the thing that I was this is going to be amazing because I can make good money and be helping people. And then, at the time when comedy started to take off is when I was applying to med school. I had already gotten a post-grad in nuclear medicine, and I was taking a break because I wasn't sure if med school was what I wanted to do. So that's why I started working in that other career. And then just about when everything was happening is when I got JFL and when I was applying to medical school and PA school. And, then after JFL, I signed my manager, and it was one of those things where she was very honest and are you going to take this seriously? And she didn't say it like that. She's just well, because I was talking about how unavailable my schedule was. Because after JFL, I worked for about 5 more months. Because I worked till the end of 2023. Mm-hmm. Wait. No, I worked till the beginning of 2023. Yeah, so I stopped January 2023. So it's pretty much been about 2 years since I stopped working. Mm-hmm. And then it worked out because I did happen to get on the college circuit. So in terms of income, I was able to still maintain because I started doing I went into the NACA gigs, which I not everyone I can there's an up and down with NACA, but I do love it. Mm-hmm. I know you get the horror stories what people talk, but I enjoy the experience of going to these little towns and where colleges are, and I really connect with college students. I mean, I know I'm really aging out of their generation because I was not. I mean, there hasn't been any millennials in school since I started comedy, but I will say that I think Gen Zs do relate to me just because of my sadness.
I've seen your comedy, and I it's interesting.
That's a girl. We can the existentialism, the dread. We get her.
I have two things. I guess a comment and then a question. So the comment is I've seen your comedy and your style and that desire to put out what that depression feels like. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like the person I'm speaking to now almost has more pep than what I see on stage.
Yeah.
And it feels like you're almost representing what depression feels like as not a character, because it is you, right? But I'm getting a different energy, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's just me being unstable. I think that because I do say that there are times on stage where I am very especially when I'm hosting. If I'm hosting, there's a certain energy you have to bring to the stage. Mm-hmm. I hosted I was on 2 Don't Tell shows this weekend, and I hosted the one last night, and it took me I've been in a part of Don't Tell for almost 2 years at this point, and yeah, it took me that time to realize. About a year into it is when I realized what it needed to be to be a host, because it is hard. Like there's another comic who's also a Don't Tell host who's also very deadpan. And both, I would say that it's an energy thing, and when you're hosting, it's different. Like if I'm not the host, I can be my usual energy. I think, I might come in and be fun sometimes, but also I'm someone who's like, that's why this is a very hard career, right? Because I'm someone who's, when I'm doing a show, my emotions are tied to how I'm doing on the show, if that makes sense. Like, and on top of that, if I'm going into the show, I'm like, let's say I'm having a dark day and I'm going into it, usually I'm gonna be pretty monotone, and I also enjoy being monotone. Like that's who I am when I'm like, I like have a certain brain I go to, and when I'm doing my comedy, and I think that part of my brain is someone who wants to be monotone. I do enjoy being monotone, but also when I'm talking with my friends, I think it's because I'm more in a comfort setting, right? Like I don't, we're acquaintances, we're not the best of friends, but I do feel comfortable around you, so talking to you isn't hard. But if you were a stranger, I'd probably be like, if you were a stranger asked me to your podcast, I don't know that I'd be as open, animated, maybe, just because it's like, I'm comfortable with you. So I think that that's more a part of it, and I would say that you may have seen me, because a lot of the clips I post are not that I've posted in a while, but a lot of them are a little bit older. But if you notice now, my clips have gotten less deadpan. I do like being engaged, because I find that my best shows are when I know I just had this conversation with a comedian I was opening for last weekend, Al Madrigal, and it was like the conversation of crowd work and whether or not it's necessary and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I would say that the one reason I've come over to the side of somewhat supporting crowd work to an extent to the necessary nature of it, to it being natural, not to the forced nature of it, because it does help you. For me, it helps me connect with the audience. So that's something that's a new thing for me that I've done within the last like year and a half, I would say. I was saying when I first started comedy, I was really bad because I felt really, I don't know how you feel like when you do crowd work, but I feel like when I was first doing crowd work, it was one of those things where I didn't feel comfortable doing it, and then I would like get awkward if the answers didn't go the way I wanted. So it's just like, not even the way I wanted, but if I felt like I couldn't build on it. Now it's like I've learned, you get better as you do more. So I've learned how to like get myself out of maybe a hole of talking to someone who the conversation's not going anywhere, or someone who doesn't want to be talked to, things like that. But I would say that was what changed my monotone nature, is being more engaged with the audience. Whereas like if I go in there straight up just to do my material, it's gonna get laughs. Like I'm not like a cocky person, but I know that I'm decently funny, and so I know that the written out jokes are gonna do well. But the crowd work just adds to a vibe that makes the audience feel really connected, and I think that makes me feel better. So then then my audience, how I look and act changes, because for a while it was pretty deadpan, but that's kind of, I do enjoy that, and I think that should be a nature that shouldn't be. Not that you were claiming it as weird, you're just stating that you see me be a bit more deadpan and straightforward. But I will say that I feel like a lot of people would critique that when I first started, as if like, I feel like it's something that like white men can do, but me looking like me cannot be like this. I'm this dark, depressed. Like I was like, no, and I say this on so many people on podcasts. It's a conversation point that comes up a lot. But yeah, it's like I can also be a sad white man. Like we can all do it. Like I do, like I watched indie movies when I was growing up. I watched the saddest movies you could think of. Someone was just talking about Requiem for a Dream, and I was like, I shouldn't have watched that, but I thought I was like some cool indie girl, and I was watching all these insanely depressing movies at like 14, because I loved independent movies, and so it was like I was depressed at 13. It's and I think because I grew up in suburban America, it was also more common to the situation, right? Because there's that whole thing of like, people tend to say, well, you don't really have anything to be sad about. Why are you sad? And I'm like, that's a great point. Why am I sad? And that's depression. That's what like, that's the thing of like, we, as a society, it was still taboo in the 2000s. I mean, I know we've gotten pretty much away with it in Gen Z, even if their parents won't accept it. Like it's a rarely, mental health is an accepted topic of discussion, where I still feel like as younger millennials and older millennials and Gen X, we were still all part of that generation where you really weren't. It was really something that's still taboo, right? If you said depression, it was like, oh my God, put that person in a psych ward. Not like, hey, this is a normal thing. If you get therapy, you can probably get help with it. Whereas that's not something, with us, it was like, oh my God, like it's so taboo. Don't say you're depressed. Don't say you're anything. Like that's what it was. So I would feed into like emo music and indie movies, and so then that made me the type of writer that I was, and made me the type of comic that I am, just because that's who I am. I'm just, as much as I'm depressed, I'm also like, I've peaked. Maybe that's manic. Maybe the peaks are manic. I don't know, but I do have peaks too. Like that's, so every answer is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm sorry. Is that?
It is pitch perfect.
Okay, because I
am.
will. If you don't stop me, like,
Gotcha.
physically,
I
won't.
will. There will be a point where I'm because we, like you said. Okay, here I'll talk a little bit.
Yeah, because I can't stop. It's not even like a mean thing. It feels rude, but I love to talk. And honestly, you live alone as well, but I live alone, and like I said, I self-isolate, baby. I see people like once a week. So when I do get to see them, like Jamie hates me. Jamie's my best friend. I'll be like, well, I see her once a week, so it'll be 45 hours of talking.
Here, I'll raise my hand when I want to.
Perfect.
Interrupt.
Great.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, because I was just like, if you don't stop me, I'll just. It's almost like a monologue. It's like you don't even need to be here. Honestly, I'll ask the question and then I'll talk for an endless amount of time.
All right. Here's my interruption. The first thing is one of the things I love about this podcast is I get to know somebody because we like you said, we've been acquaintances. I've seen you around, but I haven't gotten to know who Victoria Vincent is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm piecing it together and I'm seeing it. That's the first thing. The second thing, we will speak about Jamie because the reason I'm so excited to talk to you is because I went on the road with her recently.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I have, ever since then, I've continued to speak to Jamie and I love her very much.
She's
amazing.
very good at that.
She's got my heart now.
She's a better person to talk to because I don't mean that in a mean way. She's really good with contact.
Yeah.
People will text me and they'll hear back from me 3 weeks later.
Yeah, she's with me.
Jamie literally, she'll be like, oh yeah, I'm in the city seeing this comic that we met once together.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I'm getting dinner with them. I'm like, we spoke once and that was it.
Yeah.
That comic will never see me again. Jamie will text that person, hang out with them every time they're in that city. And it's not because I don't want to. She's just a very... Like, I'm too awkward. I won't I won't reach out to someone when I'm in their city unless I feel like I'm super comfortable with them.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jamie has made friends with so many comedians. It's how she's on the road so often. She's like, oh, I'm just at so and so's house. I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I met that person, and that person probably remembers me. But they're probably like, Victoria's a bitch. It's not a bitch. I don't know how to talk to people as I'm talking to you right now. But like, this is because you invited me into your home. If you didn't do that, we would probably never spoke again.
Well, I'm glad that it's happening.
Yeah, because Jamie's way better at that. So I'm glad that you're friends with her. Everyone who's listening to this, be friends with Jamie Schreiner. She's the better of the two.
I have one other bit of context before I ask this next question. You're welcome to look through that, by the way.
Oh, no, I'm just peeking. You know, I love a good Polaroid.
Yeah, we got a lot of them over here. Literally,
make a wall.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with. I want to put a museum together for Chicago comedians.
Oh, hell yeah!
It's a whole thing. But
good. You should do that.
A little bit of context before I ask you this next question. I have a friend. Shout out to Jessica. I won't say your last name, Jessica, because I know you don't want people to know your last name. She is
find it out, Jessica.
She is a black woman who has immigrant parents. Classic. You're going to be a doctor. And wanted to express interest in the arts when she was young, was told, fuck that, you're going to be a doctor, and has become a doctor, and now later in life is learning about her ADHD, her depression, her desire for the arts. And I think that I'm damn near looking at this podcast as a lens to speak to her because I can't do it the same way. And so this next question, with that context in mind, what was your upbringing like? It sounds like your parents were in the medical field. You grew up. How was your upbringing in terms of what you wanted in the arts?
I will say that, I think a lot of people, when I say my parents are doctors, are like, oh, well, that's like, what do they think of you doing this? And honestly, my parents are pretty supportive. It makes it all worse. But I will say growing up, it's also, I think one of the very fortunate things is my upbringing, I think, is very unique. Not only am I black, I'm Ethiopian. And those are two different things. I think people, like, the difference between being African versus black is a very different thing that people are not understanding. I think especially, I think black people and African people know. They know that those are two different worlds. There's a whole argument on TikTok as, like, being how, like, British black is not the same as American black. There's an experience that is different, just like being African, especially when you're African, not raised here, right? Like, even if you came here when you're 15. Now, don't get me wrong, my mom came here when she was, like, 21, but it's, like, she came here, she was like 20 and very young, like right after high school. But the fact of the matter is she still has a cultural upbringing of an immigrant. And for that, she was way more. So that's where I'm coming to the point of she was the one who was way more, you need to be a doctor. Even though, my dad being a surgeon and, my mom she is a DNP. So she's a doctor, nurse practitioner. She's multiple. She's like, She just got another degree. They're both very highly educated, both of them. My dad more did it because he saw someone in his family become a doctor. And being a Black American in Detroit, seeing an experience of watching someone being like, he grew up middle class again, which is another thing people assume about Black Americans. They think we all come from poverty, whereas like, no, there's a middle class for us as well. Like, my dad didn't grow up wealthy, but he grew up middle class in Detroit, had a good life. His parents worked good jobs. They owned their home, like just a normal life. His dad was in the Navy. His mom was a teacher. Very normal life. But he had an uncle who was a doctor, who then made all of the nephews, my dad included, all of my uncles are all doctors now. So again, you find someone with that goal, and that's what happened to us. It was more seeing, as a Black American, we've all grown up with experience and see how white America or all of America looks at us. And for me, it was the opposite. So I grew up in a culture, not the cultural of the Black identity that white people try to thrust onto us was something I never saw. I did not see, like no one in my family was in jail. No one in my family was in a gang. Like not the idea of what we as Black Americans know, but the idea of what white America thrusts on us. I never saw that growing up on either side. Because both on my mom's side, well, they're all immigrants. So I would say a good 50% of my mom's siblings were highly educated as well. My uncle has a doctorate in computer science. My mom was on her second degree when she met my dad. Like, education was valued on both sides of my family, but that's just because of how America treats us, right? So I was like, I grew up in the middle of being upper middle class and middle class in the sense that I grew up upper middle class, but my parents put us in situations with lots of people who weren't as wealthy as us. And the ironic part is that those people were mostly white. So for me, what I saw, like me and my friends made a joke in high school about how like I was the only person out of all of my white friends who didn't have a family member in prison. Like that was the thing where like all that the society thrusts on me about being Black, I saw in the people around me who were white. So, and that's again where, white people probably think, oh, that's not all of us think that way. Absolutely. But the majority of the world, with my experience, did have those thoughts. And the only reason the people around me didn't have those thoughts is because they knew my father. Meaning, like, I went to high school, like, my dad had operated on the vice principal's mother. So she would introduce me to every student that way. She'd be like, this is Victoria, her dad's a surgeon, and he saved my mom's life. And that's how, so everyone in my high school knew who I was. And not saying that shouldn't matter, but it's like, that changes how people view you. People think that they don't, but the minute they find out certain things, like for instance, the way I went to the ER in high school a couple times, and every time, the difference between how I was treated before they knew who my dad was is very interesting. So that, my experience growing up, was very confusing, but also I find to be blessed because I got many versions of the world. What's up?
Ooh, I like this. I like this I like this thing we've developed here, this rhythm. Now, do you feel like your experience sounds like racially very complex?
Yeah.
Where you're at now in your racial identity and your sense of self, how would you describe it? Do you find yourself still around more white people, more Black people? Where are you at now?
This is a great question for right now because I'm very confused.
Okay.
And it's very hard because that was going to be my next thing, is that it does put you in this circumstance of, I was very lucky to have such a good familial situation that it didn't really...
Whoa, that was a word. What was that?
Familial?
Oh, like, familial
situation.
Okay. I was like, some doctor shit.
No, familial situation. I was like, I'm so bad at pronouncing words. The other day, I was trying to say authentication. Damn it, I said it right.
Authentic?
No, authentication.
Authentication?
I was trying to say that word, and I'm saying it perfectly right now. Okay. Which is crazy, because I have a joke with it, and now I can't say on stage, I can't say it properly. Okay. I don't know what's wrong with me. I also think my mom, so when I grew up, I talked really fast, and I think it made me develop a lisp. Or not even a lisp, but because I talk so fast, it makes it very hard for me to pronounce long words. So
you have ADHD.
Yeah, 125%. Yeah. My brother will be like, my brother will laugh when we're in a conversation because he's like, I will switch gears so quickly. This happened to me yesterday. I was hanging out at my friend's house, and my friends were talking about March Madness, and me and my one friend are very into comic books. So in the middle of the March Madness contest, I was talking about March Madness for like 2 seconds, and I was like, hey, by the way, have you ever seen Young Justice? Which has nothing to do with, like, they all just, the other four who don't know anything about the Justice League were like, what are you talking about?
So to get you back on track.
No, I was going back on track.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, because my brain knows what to do.
Okay,
my brain,
I'm hanging back.
It'll find its way back there.
All
but
right.
Because I grew up with strong family ties, that it, even if I don't think I saw bad friendships when they would come that way, and I think it's just because I didn't, I was always like, I can always go back to my family, so I don't think I handled it. In high school, I feel like this is gonna sound so bad because I have met good people in my later 20s, I would say. here and there. But I will say college was definitely a confusing time for me. Like high school, even though I grew up around white people, those two people are still my closest friends now. Those people I never felt like I had to explain my identity to, even now, because now it's not just a struggle of black and white, it's also a struggle of black and white plus my mental health, right? Like it's a thing of like feeling insecure about things and then having your friends not be good friends, and so that just kind of increases your insecurity about those things, right? Like it's one thing when you have mental health issues. I don't want to say issues, I think we take that so seriously, but when you deal with depression and anxiety and those types of things, that's a hard feat to deal with, even if your life isn't chaos, right? Like we talk about how like celebrities and all these people, you know, everyone's like, well, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe, you know,
Anthony Bourdain would kill himself.
Right. All these things, because it's like, that's the point. That's the point we try to get across from you. You know, someone posted a picture like Chester Bennington was one of my favorite people in the whole entire world. And people were posting that video of him 2 nights before where he was playing and laughing with his kids. And it's like his wife posted that to be like, hey, this is what depression looks like. It doesn't mean that this man was in this place of horribleness the whole time, even though he has a, you know, great legacy. I love Linkin Park, you know, great family. He's always been a good person. So he has all of these good things about him. That does not mean that's what translates to what's happening in his brain. So I think the combination of my own depression and anxiety in combination with having people around me who have not been very good has made that a struggling time for me in identity. Go ahead.
People have not been very good, meaning people have not. What do you mean by that?
I'm trying so hard not to.
Can I put it in my own words?
No. I'm trying not to attack people who think that they're gonna. Here's the thing, and that's the thing. Why should I care?
Shit.
If someone's been bad to me, I shouldn't care whether or not they feel attacked.
Okay.
But I do. You know, like I've had someone reach out to me once where I was talking about a situation on like I have a close friend story, right? We all have a close friend story, and I was really upset about something. I was like, hey, I felt like I've been excluded, and you know, talking about my close friend story to maybe 30 people, and that this person only knows a couple people of, it put them in a position of, even though they left me out, they were feeling that as an attack, and I was like, well, so it's like, I've dealt with a lot. That's a very specific situation, but I've had a lot of people, when I say, hey, this behavior has bothered me, will become defensive and make me feel horrible, even though the behavior they were exhibiting was bad. You're excluding a person. Whether or not you think that I should be, whether or not I have to reach out to you, you're excluding a person if you go on a trip with your 15 college friends and exclude one person. Like, I don't care. How was I, like, I'm not telepathic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to know that you're having that trip. So why would I be the one to reach out and say I wasn't invited? Like, you know, it's things like that. So
is it racially connected in some way?
I don't want it to be, but it's weird that I'm the only person of color.
Okay. All right. I'm piecing
It's like one of those things where it's like, I don't want it to be racially connected, but it is weird.
Yeah.
Right? It is weird that's that. And it's just one of, like, I can't explain it. Like, maybe I am just such a horrible person you don't want any friends with me. It's fine. But the fact of the matter is, I am the only person of color in both of those friend groups where this situation had happened. So I think that to answer your earlier question, now we're circling back, that has put me in a confused point, because for a while it was never about black versus white for me. It was just the people that were easiest in around, right? And they were easy to be friends at a time, but then when life got hard, they couldn't be good friends. And I don't know that it's a race thing so much as maybe they just didn't care about me much. I don't really know. I can't tell you the reasoning why, but that in me, it's unfortunate that is the one mistake of where I grew up like I did. But the thing of the matter is, it's me and not necessarily the environment, because my brother and sister had black friends.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so
yeah, it is interesting. It's absolutely very interesting.
Your brother, it sounds like, I'll put this into my own words, you tell me if this is connecting.
Sure.
It sounds like your brother, it sounds like you grew up in a generally white space and you were okay based off of your goal of not ignoring race, but basically your rule was, are you treating me chill? Are we good? I don't care what race you are.
Right, and if we had the same interests, because that was that time period where the whole black nerd thing was like separated all of us black nerds, and we all could have been friends, right?
Oh yeah.
It was that thing of like, it was the 90s and the 2000s was being a nerd in black was not cool. Now anime, comic books, Comic-Con, everything is cool now. But the fact of the matter is, I was an emo weirdo who liked specific things that most of my black friends did not. And I had black friends, I had a small group of black friends because I was in Jack and Jill and I was on the cheerleading squad. And that was both situations that had mostly black people. So it's not like I have zero black friends, but my closest friends growing up, the only other person was a half black guy who was, I considered to be more white than me. So like, you know, he grew up just like me. We both were upper middle class in a setting that we were in. And so we were very similar and both had that experience. He's just lucked out because he's not mentally ill. So
now I think I'm piecing this. And now what the confusing part sounds like is now we're in a space where race seems to be a more clear factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only that, but I also feel like, I think this is across the board, whether or not my friends I guess it does have to do with the people you surround, because if you surround yourself with the right type of white people, I mean, the people who can empathize with you, then it's different, right? And I think that that's also the experience, because on top of the fact that personally they've done some things to me, there's also the factor of like, there are things right now in our country that are making me feel so disillusioned, and they're not the easiest people to talk to that about. It's also not a conversation they feel like they have to have because it's not directly affecting them, right? And even though things may not directly affecting me, because I have the privilege of not being in a situation where these things directly affect me. That is privilege, meaning like, even though yes, black Americans are being infected, people of color are being infected, there are things happening in this country, but I am privileged enough to those things aren't directly affecting me, but I know they can because I've had experiences of prejudice and things like that, which are a lot of things that they maybe can't relate to. That doesn't mean they're not, you know, Democratic type people who they voted, they did all that stuff. But again, it's a daily conversation for me. It's not so much for them. And, you know, we have the unique person. Like I said, Jamie's a perfect example of somewhere I never have felt the way that I feel around some people. Yeah. And that, I think, is the issue. When you have someone who's not the same as you and can understand you, can do all this stuff, that means it's possible.
Oh, right? Do you mind if I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
My.
Don't ask me. I mean, like, if we're in a natural point to talk, I get when I'm on a rant, you can like raise your hand, but we're naturally talking. Sometimes I go on it, but it's one of those things when you see people who can do it, it makes it harder for you to see other people. And then also when you see those other people be good friends to other people, right? We had a friend who experienced something recently, a very big tragedy, and the support there was way different than the multitude of tragedies I experienced as I became friends with these people. And it's just one of those things where, like, it's not even about that. Like, I have a friend who can't be a good friend to anyone. And I don't mean that negatively. They're just a very person who, like, doesn't know how to deal with day-to-day conversations. It's something I learned as we got older. But they're the same way to everyone. So for me to be like, well, he's the same way to everyone. Consistency. But if I'm watching you be better to another person, there's something
going on there.
There's something that you need to explain to me.
So I will tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes, please. Yeah, I want to hear what developed Aaron. You know?
I grew up in Riverside, California.
Okay.
It's a desert type of place.
Yeah.
And mostly white people, very conservative place, very cop heavy.
Okay.
As a kid, I don't know if you'll relate to I was middle class.
Okay.
The way my mom moved and tried to present us, you would have thought we were upper middle class. We were middle class.
Nothing wrong with that. Listen, you got to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, my mom, very bougie. And my experience of it was being told, well, Aaron, race doesn't matter, and it's you're being racist by thinking race matters.
Yeah.
And it's that
idea of we don't even think about it. What are you talking about? We weren't even thinking about it. I'm like, that is the
part
problem.
of it. Yes.
The problem is that you weren't thinking about it because you didn't have to think about it.
And so I was mostly around white people, and then I had an even more frustrating experience I think you can relate to, which is not being black enough for the black kids. Yeah. And it's like, nigga, we are both in the same suburbs. Stop it.
Exactly. And that's the point I was making, where it's like, I think I could have, that's where my brother, and this goes, I mean, he was the one who emphasized he wished he would have been more vocal about making me go to an HBCU. Because he's like, you would have met other black nerds. He's like, if you would have gone to Spelman, if you would have gone to these places, because when I went to another PWI from a private white high school, I just only fell more into the same patterns. Again, and at the time it doesn't seem like anything, because in college and in high school I didn't experience anything serious, right? I remember the one time I experienced racism in college, I just posted a joke about it a couple months ago, but my white friends had a more adverse reaction to me being called the N-word than I did. And it was like more one of those things where, like, yeah, it's a part of life. This for me, whereas you all are freaking out because you watched racism happen in real time. At the same time, you also didn't say anything. but when that person walked away, I guess my friend did say, one friend said something, and then everyone else, and I don't blame them for that. I think in the moment because again, to them, this is a fallacy. It's a thing that like, this is 1950s style racism. It couldn't be happening in the 2010s, right? Someone calling me the N-word as we're walking down the street in our college town is something that you could not anticipate. Whereas me, it may not have been something I had experienced yet, but I could see it coming. Like, it's like, we weren't doing anything. We were literally walking back to our white sorority house. Keep in mind, I was surrounded with white women. And we were walking back to our white sorority house. And they still had to sneak it in there.
Yeah,
they still had to sneak in.
Just because you're around them doesn't mean you're protected.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like that was my superpower. Was 90% of the time I was. If I was at clubs and bars, whenever, the look you get differently when I would go to a bar by myself versus when I showed up with all the women that I showed up with was... and that could have been a defense thing. I don't know. But that happened a lot while I was younger. And as you get older, you're not in space so much. My friends aren't going to clubs. We're not going to places. Like, I'm usually doing things. We're not doing that stuff. We're doing stuff on our own. You might go to dinner or something a while. But when you're younger, you're in those spaces where you're together all the time. So really, you feel like you're one of them because you're not feeling that difference as much, until you're like, for instance, if I go to meet them when I would go to meet them at a place rather than go in with them together. Like things like that, where it's like the protection of being surrounded by my army of white women, meaning like, not necessarily that they would anticipate racism would happen, but the fact of the matter is it's less likely to happen with them in frame. Because you never, the biggest thing to racists is that they never want to appear racist to their other people. They'll do. That's why you see it in comment sections and things like that. But someone in Chicago is not going to actively walk up to you. I mean, I'm not saying impossible. It could happen. It's happened. It's less likely to happen in a situation where either Chicago is a pretty black city, so good luck with getting away with that. Two, where it's like other being perceived as racist around other people. The same reason people don't want to admit who they voted for. Things like that. Where it's like, if you're so proud of it, if you're so proud of your racism, your prejudice, or whatever, be proud.
And I think. So I think a little, because you said something there that is a difference in how we were raised. It sounds like the overt racism did not happen.
Oh no, not until, again, because remember I was bringing up, people knew who my dad was in most of the settings I was in.
Right.
And I would get a lot of passive aggressive, white women who were like, a lot of people, because a lot of the people I grew up around, again, my parents were wealthier than a lot of these people. So there was a lot of that where they didn't like that. They definitely didn't like that, but it was more overt than it was less overt. It was more passive aggressive nature, more like, the little, what we call now microaggressions, rather than what you may have experienced, which was out.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine was microaggressions mixed with spikes of severe violence.
Yeah. See, that was not happening.
Yeah. There was
and like I said, I got very lucky.
You're good.
And that's why I only didn't learn about it until adulthood, which is why it changed my frame now. That's why when you asked me that question about how do you feel now about everything, I'm like confused, because it is hard for me now to learn this at 30.
I will say, with all of that being said, I will acknowledge that you are not like Jamie, and that if I reach out to you, you may not say anything. I will not take that personally.
Oh no, yeah. I don't think I try to be. I try to remind people it's happening to everyone. Yeah, it happens to Jamie. Jamie will hope she gets me in that window where I'm talkative. Yeah, if she's not, she'll hear from me in 2 weeks.
But I will say that if you don't mind, I would love to reach out to you more on that level, because I think that's important. Again, I guess for myself. So escaping Riverside, the part of why I came to Chicago was I knew it was segregated, so black people would be easy to find.
Right.
And then I've slowly learned that sometimes niggas ain't shit, which is a whole other.
Yeah, because that's a whole thing where we can talk about. I think people think, because like I remember, so I posted trauma dump salad.
Yeah.
Like I did one of those, it's a TikTok thing. Okay. It's not really a big thing anymore, but it was like where people were like putting are you on TikTok?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You're clearly not a TikTok expert in the way that I am, in the sense that I know, like, remember when you put on things I want to talk about?
Yeah, you wrote
and that. TikTok drama was the first one?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
But this is not even a TikTok drama. This is a TikTok trend that was happening probably like back last fall, summer, where people were doing candy trauma dump salads, which is where they were, everyone would bring a bag of candy and they would say something traumatic that happened to them, and they would put it into a bowl, and then everyone was doing it, right? So Jamie and I came up with this concept of I would do it by myself, and I would only do black microaggressions that I experienced.
Okay.
So, and she was like, it was like a funny thing of like the video was just me, and then at the end it panned to Jamie just sitting there like that. So it was a very fun thing. It got like 200,000 views, whatever. The thing was, I was getting hit from both sides. Yeah. It was black people being like, well, you should have never been there. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Or your parents should never put you in that situation or things like that. When I was like, first off, I want to make it very clear that everyone was bad. This was specifically about microaggressions, but the fact of the matter is, being a black nerd was something that black people also, it's that whole thing where it's like, the reason why I fainted to people who were nice to me is because I did. And again, the interactions I had that were microaggressions were not my friends when I was younger. They were maybe witnessed it and none of us knew it was a microaggression, but it wasn't the people who I actively consider still a friend. It was acquaintances, it was teachers, it was people like that. And again, as a child, I don't know that that is something that's happening. When someone says something that's slightly, you know, it's on my page. If people want to go watch it, it's on my Instagram. But I post all these like, and I consider them little things that everyone's like, oh my God, those are macroaggressions. And I was like, maybe, but it didn't affect my daily living, right? Like I still was able to go to school. I still was able to be provided for. I was still able to get an education. I was still able to go to college. All these things were still able to happen. So that's why I call them microaggressions, because it didn't actively stop me. You know, it wasn't an active thing. Like I didn't get, you know, denied from a job for being black. Things like that. Those are things that people are experiencing every day, losing things because of their race. That wasn't it for me. I just had shitty people around in a situation I can't control. I can't control who I go to school with. I can't control that. They weren't the people I actively chose to be around. But the black people in there would be like, I wanted to kind of be like, hey, like, because we can talk about the elephant in the room, me being in the sense that I wasn't being bullied for being black. I was also being bullied for being a bigger girl. And don't get me wrong, I was not this big when I was younger, but I was still a chubby girl. And so that means black people couldn't be mean to me for being black, but they could be mean to me for being fat. So I was experiencing it from all sides. So I didn't pick you all specifically because just because they were bullying me because they were white, I was being bullied by black guys for being fat. So why would I pick you too? Like that's the idea that people want to act like. I mean, that's the thing. There are multiple things I could have experienced, which is why I went to a certain group of people, which just happened to be a group of kind, weird white people who I'm still friends with today for that reason. But the fact of the matter is, you know, in college it might have been different. If I tried to go to but I did experience a lot of, you know, not great experiences with black men from high school through college and even really up until now. It's one of those things where, like, you know, your enemy can be anyone. Specifically in this conversation, we're talking about racial injustice, but that matters. You said it yourself where you're like, that was that thing of like, sometimes. They, you know, that. And then when you were younger, you also experienced where, like, again, the black people you were around may not have been like, I remember, like, you know, our interests were just different. I wanted to go to a Linkin Park concert. You know, they were hanging out and doing things that I wasn't doing. So it's like, that was the difference in interest. And I never found, like, there was one other weird black girl at my school and she was a different weird. So we just didn't have the same cliche. You know, I was not an anime girl. She was an anime girl in the band, all those things. I was more loved comic books, loved indie movies, loved emo music. That was my black girl aesthetic, you know.
And they're different.
Which is like, but I wasn't enough around black people to see that. That's what I was saying. If I had gone to an HBCU, I probably would have met girls. Now I know that we all were emo and loved Paramore. I didn't know that. I didn't know black girls were listening to Paramore the way that I was listening to Paramore, or listening to Linkin Park the way that I was listening to Linkin Park. That's something I learned in adulthood. You know, I thought it was something I would rarely see that. Now I know. We go back and we, you know, Haley Williams is an honorary black person. We love her. Every black person loves Paramore. But that was the thing that I didn't know. So that's the same experience that, like, that's the thing where I don't like black people. Like, literally, if you go to that comment section, it's less white people saying stuff and more black people being like, well, why were you in that situation? And I'm like, wait. Like, let's not pretend that everyone is a saint here, because I was experiencing bullying from a lot of people, and I just picked the people who were nicest to me. That's it. And I was in a school that I couldn't control over. My parents sent me to private school. You know, I would say the first private school I went to had a lot of black people in it, and then the second one didn't. And then there and for on, and as I got older and older, it was less black people in the schools that I was in. That was just the nature of it.
I think that
even though my high school did have 35% black people, it was just. It was just, again, the people who were, you know, they were jocks, they were cool kids. And like I said, the weirdos, they were a different type of weird. We were not in the same group. So, and we're not a monolith.
We're not.
The expectation that I should be able to hang out with all black people is weird.
Do you find yourself right now trying to find your black tribe, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, and it feels so hard at this age. It feels, I think that's for any race of any race or gender. I think that 30 is a hard time. I will say, like, millennials and Gen Zs, the settling down younger thing is definitely a thing that's happening. So it's more possible for me to, but it's also something where it's like, you get exhausted, especially because I have had such horrid friends experience, regardless of what race they are. Having traumatic friends experience makes you, it's the same way with dating. After a while, you just don't want to do it. Like, even now, I don't have the worst dating experiences, but it hasn't been amazing. And now I'm just like, well, I'm comfortable doing comedy, doing my crafts and watching TV, and rather than putting myself in the dating world. I mean, if it's there, if I walked down the street and someone asked me out, I'm not going to say no, but I'm also not out there.
Are you currently single?
I am.
Do you prefer it that way?
I don't prefer it. I just can't. My life doesn't stop.
Right.
I'm not one of those people who like my life will not stop because of it. You know, if it did, it would have stopped years ago. That's of course I do think that, you know, I don't know how you felt when you were growing up, but I definitely had the idea of the American dream. This was never the future I saw for myself ever. At this point in my life, Victoria would have been married in her residency or out of her residency, and attending at a hospital with their first child or their first child on the way. That was the person I saw myself being. The world skewed that for me. Thank you so much. But it did lead me to comedy. And I do love medicine. I plan to get back. Like I just was talking to my mom when I was driving here. I'm going to start doing more travel gigs for my other job. But, you know, because I do love it. But it's just that thing of the matter is like where I'm at, and I can't stop my living because I'm single. Like I did have a viewpoint, but if I decided to stop living just because I was single, I don't know that I'd ever do anything again. And if you make it your whole thing, I think it makes it harder. Yeah. I think someone who's like, I need this. Like I had a friend, I've only had one or two friends where it's actually worked out, where they were like, I need to get this done. I need to find someone. And it worked out great. And they've been a very lovely person in the time period that they did. But that person had to change her standards a little bit, even if that's happened. So that's mainly why. But not in a negative way. She had a very specific thing about height. And I was like, that's wild to me. You're too short to have a height limitation.
Oh, she was short and needed a guy to be 6'7".
Yeah, and now the guy she married is shorter than me, which is fine, but he's a perfect man. He's amazing. So that's not that point. I'm just saying there are people who I think if she hadn't met that person by a certain time, I think she could have probably, you know, could have gone somewhere. You know, but for me, I realize as someone who's often gotten less dates that I cannot let it define me. It doesn't stop me. I mean, I just spent, you know, I mean, I went to Ethiopia for family stuff, but before that I was in Europe for 2 weeks. Last year I went to Europe for a week. I'm always traveling. I'm in LA. I'm in New York. I'm doing the things that I want to do because it can't stop me. Does it stop me from dating? I don't think so. I'm still there. People want to see me. If we're using dating sites as a frame of reference, I was still on them. Now I've officially taken a break just because I don't want to be on a site where I'm not actively giving it time. Like if people are just swiping on me, I don't know if they are swiping on me, but if I'm on there and I'm not even looking at it, that's defeating the purpose of it. But yeah, I just think that you get to a certain point of like, I do think I would love to be with someone, but at the same time, I can't let it stop me from being a human, right? I can't not enjoy life just because I don't have a partner. Of course, I think about it sometimes, but I've been lucky enough that I have so many interests in life that it's not stopping me. You know, I have so many things that I want to get done in this world that I'm like, if I find someone along the way, great. But if not, we'll just keep chugging. We'll just keep going. You know, I think that people who make it everything, it's harder. I do.
Speaking of your interests and whatnot, you brought up history when you gave me some topics.
Yeah, because I just started listening to. I love this podcast, and I used to listen to a lot like a couple years ago, and I just started listening to it again. So
what is the podcast?
So I listen. It's called The Dollop.
Okay.
I love it so much. I honestly wish it was an idea that I would have come up with because I love history and I would love to talk about it. But it's essentially because I put on there history, but specifically weird, stupid history. Don't get me wrong, I love history, but it's dark. It's just dark. And unfortunately, I'm at this point in my life realizing the darkness of it and how that really gives me so much a lack of motivation of us ever getting to a better point as a world.
Oh, yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
Because the fact of the matter is, it's like we're doing these things and they keep happening, and all those things that they Disney colored for us to make it seem like everything worked out was just wrong. You know, I mean, I don't even think even kids who grow up going to historically black neighborhood schools, we're all still taught the same American education that, you know, slavery ended and everything was great, or, you know, what we're learning about now that's happening in the Middle East, the things that I didn't know. It's just a dark thing. And so I'm learning it, but it loses your hope because you're like, if this thing has been happening since 1948, or if this thing has been happening this and that, how? You know, and I think that again is a privilege, right? It's a privilege that we don't know these things. The internet has changed that. TikTok has changed that. Instagram, IG Reels, everything where it's like it's so readily available to us, right? People can go on live. I remember the first time of watching it happen in real time is people were going on live when Ukraine was first being bombed, and I was like, to watch things that we don't necessarily think about in this country happen directly in front of us is really dark. And, you know, it doesn't stop me from talking about it. I will, you know, I mean, do not go on my Instagram story if you want to be happy. It's not, it's just a period of like, hey, this just happened 2 weeks ago in this neighborhood, or this just happened.
Can I ask what is a silly history that you find?
That's what I was going to get to. So it's just too dark to do that. So then I start, like, the Dollop is one that kind of covers like just really stupid and silly history. And TikTok was going viral that this woman was talking about this thing called the whale explosion, which was where a town had to blow up a whale on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and how that was a horrible idea. Like the aftermath, like that's a very small short story. But then there's this one about this like Australian explorer who like had no idea what he was doing and like literally was like. It's all from his journal, right? Because this is the 1800s, and this man is writing about how his team was excluding him because he ate rabid pigeon, and everyone told him not to eat it. And then he got sick. And this man was a renowned explorer. He's really not, because he's defunct, right? And the part of that episode is like defunking him because he made himself, he was like the he wasn't Christopher Columbus, but he was someone who was just like over there discovering something that had already been discovered, like that kind of thing. And it was very funny. His name is Ludwig. I can't remember his last name, but it's just like his diary entries make him seem like a moody teenager because everyone in his group and like he kept losing supplies. They didn't tie up their horses, so like the horses ran off. This is all like someone. So there's things like that, or like there's this the one of the episodes that's like about there's this guy named Rube Weidel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Rube Weidel is? Okay, so do you know who Cy Young is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, do you not know baseball?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, so these are like, I mean, I'm not a big baseball person, but I know who Cy Young was just because I know like the big ones. I know Cy Young, I know Jackie, I know Rube. Rube is not a big one, but Babe Ruth, all these people. Rube Weidel was around this. So Cy Young was one of the best players during a certain time period, and during that time period, like it's so far away from where we are now that that's the only name that you really remember and associate because he's so big. But the fact of the matter is, Rube Weidel was also playing at the same time. And was actually a better player statistically, and nobody knows him because he was such a weird fuck up. And he's so funny. Like he was just like this guy who literally had no cares in the world. I think like, here's the thing: when he wasn't playing baseball, he was wrestling gators for money. That was his thing. He would wear. So this is during the time when like firemen's were private, so you'd have to like pay people to come put out your fire, and he would wear a fireman's uniform, which at that time was just red.
Yeah.
He would wear it underneath his baseball uniform. So if he heard fire truck sirens, he would run after them because he just liked fighting fires. He also would get distracted, go into the stands, and play with kids and chug people's beer and eat their food. I mean, he was like one of the best pitchers.
Yeah. But
he was so crazy. They had to literally, this is one of the funny ones. I guess like baseball players have to share rooms when they go on the road.
Yeah.
And specifically during this time period, they wouldn't just share rooms, they had to share beds. So one of his teammates had to put on his contract that Rube was not allowed to eat food in bed. Like this man was just, it's funny things like that where it's like, it's silly history, right? Like there's another episode it's called Edward Clark versus the Girls. And it's like this dude who was trying to keep women out of schools, but in such a weird and funny, it's just all this shit. Or like the London to Paris car race. One of my favorite episodes ever. It's about these people had like, it was a race literally from like, you had to go it was New York to London. Mm-hmm. So you had to like, car race, meaning there were certain parts you couldn't do. It was just like it's people major fuck ups in history. That's all. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do really serious ones, and I listen to this because it's necessary. Like they have ones on Reagan, they have ones on Donald Trump, they have ones on all of these political people. They have ones on senators that I think are very funny, even though it's very serious. Like there's a senator who was like I guess he'd been sanctioned for something, and while they were sanctioning him, they like searched and seized all of his property, and they found like 90 bottles of lube. It was like a Diddy. Like they found 90 bottles of lube on this dude's yacht and like asked him in Congress what he did and he tried to come up with the stupidest explanation for why he did it. I'm not describing everything so well. It's super funny when you listen to it, but it's called The Dollop. There's like 800 episodes I think at this point. They've been doing it since like 2015. Yeah. And I listened to it there was a brief time when I was at my job, there'll be brief, when I was working, I had a lot of downtime when I was doing patient charts and stuff and, whatever. And, I loved podcasts, especially driving too. So there was a point where I was binging all of their episodes. Like I was obsessed with it. And it was just so funny. Like there's so many, like I can't even pinpoint. There's so many stories in history that I'm just like, oh, humans are literally just idiots. Yes. And they've always been. Of course there's the smart people, but they're even like, they even do that. They defunk a lot of our people that we put up on a pedestal that don't need to be on a pedestal. So if you're looking, they are two white comedians, but they're very funny. I'm obsessed with Gareth Reynolds and Dave Anthony. He's like the perfect, I think he's the perfect sounding board to Dave or to Gareth. I think they work well together, but Gareth has like characters and he makes it so funny, but they're just talking about real things that have happened in history. It's all real. Or like, or 10-cent beer night at the Cleveland Stadium, which was like one of the worst situations ever. 10-cent beer. Did you hear that? 10-cent beer that you're giving to Midwest people. Yeah. And how that riot went. Or the Cleveland Balloon expedition thing where that like killed people because like they didn't plan. They had too many balloons and it was really bad.
Yeah.
Like just like stories like that, like the human idiocy. Like the whale explosion one's one of the perfect ones because people are literally telling people you shouldn't blow them up, and this guy's like, we should do it. We should absolutely, like, this is the best solution. What else could we do? And the fact that people were standing there watching it, like, what did you think the next thing was going to happen? Where did you think the exploded bits were going to go? Like, we have gravity. Like, it's so funny because it's just people in history being so stupid, or like, and like there are ones that are talking about like political figures and like big incidents, but they're also just day to day what people would do, like the understanding of what mince pie is made of, and like how like, or like, you know, the dark story behind George Washington's teeth, like all these little stories that are just like, they're not super huge, but they're like crazy in the fact that someone did that, or like, you know, how they realized anesthesia was a thing. These people would literally just get high on like what we consider laughing gas, and then they would have laughing gas parties. It wasn't used as a medical thing. Yeah. Until someone realized one day that he was doing it, and he accidentally like hatched his leg or something and couldn't feel it. And that's when they realized. But they were just using it for parties. Yeah. They were like, let's just fucking go. Like, get all that, like, you need to get all those narcotics into me. Now, everything that's now being banned because of our addictions, and because of the crisis, is how it started. Was literally just this dude and his friends, they would have laughing gas parties, and then this dude literally like hatch it to his leg or something, and didn't feel it. And they were like, oh, and the guy was a doctor. So he's like, oh, okay, we could, like, that was how all of these things, and that's with most medical things to start out. Like the dude who made the first x-rays was doing it on his arm. The guy who used to do the first intravenous, like, you know how we do IVs, which is an intravenous line. That's what I put into my patients. You know, the first person who did that practiced on himself for years.
Fucking around?
Yeah, well, not fucking around, but like it was like one of those things where like it's an idea of like everything we did had to have practice and had to come out of somewhere. Like even like I was gonna put it on the list, but I thought it was weird of things that I'm interested. But radiation, the only thing, that's my whole thing. Like I know radiation, like I know like the Radium Girls is another story they do on the Dollop, which is these women, very long story, so I'm not gonna tell. But the Radium Girls, if anyone hears it, they probably know about it. But radiation, the only reason we know about it is because of the aftermath of Hiroshima and all the things that happen, you know, at the power plants and anything. Oh my God, why is it blanking on my head the name of the power plant that we lost?
Oh, Chernobyl.
Oh my God, I was like, my brain went blank. Chernobyl. Yeah. Chernobyl and in the city and the aftermath around it. That's how we know radiation, right? We would have never known if those things didn't happen. It's those things aren't a joke. It's not funny, but the fact of the matter is the understanding of how radiation how our body handles it, how it works on our cells, how it results in cell death. How we understand all that is because of those situations. Yeah. So that's a darker version of what I'm talking about. But human history is just humans making mistakes and us learning from those mistakes or not learning. You know, a lot of times we actually learn, but then decide not to do anything with that learning as well. That's a huge thing in history. We know that things are wrong and we're still doing them, but some of these things are very funny to learn when you know like how these things started, or how like the Heimlich maneuver started, or how like eggnog became a thing. Like that's what this podcast is. It's just like, it's just a bunch of like weird history, and some of it is really important and some of it's just funny, but it's I'm pretty much, the Dollop should be paying me at this point, but it's a great podcast to listen to hear just like weird things in history, and some that are very funny. Like the laughing gas one gets me. I didn't describe the Rube Weidel episode good enough, but the Rube Weidel episode is my favorite episode. Sorry. Like I won't, that man, I hope he wasn't racist, because it was like the early 1900s. I hope that man wasn't racist. We'll see. But if he wasn't, hilarious man that existed. Just a hilarious man across the board.
I'm gonna put a pin in the history stuff.
Yeah, because I could have gone on forever. That's something. Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
I'm gonna. Yeah, when the camera's off, I might talk to you about the history stuff. You brought up something earlier about being a bigger girl and how that's affected things, et cetera, et cetera. I had 2 episodes recently with, who was it? They're right in here somewhere. With Ron Hexagon.
Hell yeah.
And you know Ron, I assume.
I was going to say, because those are all skinny bitches. I'm looking at these pictures. I know.
And Hannah, Lexi.
Hell yeah. Wait, who's Lexi?
She runs Take a Shot at Make Me.
Is Jamie on the toilet in this picture?
No. She just looks like it. We're in the hotel at the on the tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's not on the toilet. I have a picture with Kyron on the toilet.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't think Jamie would let you take a picture on the toilet. I would see her doing it for the comedy effect.
I could see it.
But I was like, oh, it kind of looks like it.
Now, this subject, I mean, I asked beforehand if there was anything you didn't want to talk about, and you seemed fine. So.
Yeah, no, there's very few things I don't want to talk about, especially because, again, like, I do think that if it was a different person, maybe that would have been the answer. But like I said, you're coming at things from a very regular, you're not like, it's not like you're attacking me with questions. You're more just asking me to explain that, like a therapist, like something I probably I'm in therapy, but this is good too.
Oh, good. My desire is for a broader understanding.
Yeah.
Now I've had my own issues with body and weight and stuff, but it's almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. When I spoke with Lexi, when I spoke with Ron, the way they described the experience of being bigger, and that their whole experience of life with that is, for Ron, it's a food thing that is of comfort. He associates food with comfort, with family, with gathering, and then with Lexi, it's almost like it's a depression thing on exercise and this feeling of I can't move and get up to do things. Also adding the factor of simple genetics and how people.
Well, I was gonna say that mine is probably a mix of Lexi and then other things. So it's like, I would say genetic, not just genetic. Because if you see my family, my mom is 5'3" and weighs 125 pounds. My mom is extremely tiny. My siblings, we're all tall. We got my dad's genes. We're all like, my dad's 6'4". I'm the tallest, being 5'11", but my siblings are both 5'10". So it's not like they're both like 5'10" and 5'9". So it's not like none of us are shorter than the average lower than height, which is like 5'8", and I think 5'8" and shorter is considered shortish. Maybe 5'7" and shorter, but we're all 5'9" and above, except for my mom. My brother is a bit like more like you, and he's someone who struggled the opposite, meaning he's been obsessed with, he was always too skinny, right? He was always trying to bulk up. He hated the way that he looked in that way. He would be the one, like, there was a point where he was, oh my God, so annoyingly into CrossFit. I want to just, like, I was like, is this your whole thing?
Yeah.
Like, so this, and of course, this was the early 2010s. He was obsessed with CrossFit, protein, all that stuff. He's still a pretty active person. Like, he works out 2 hours a day. Yeah, he's fucking crazy. So I think that's why the genetics thing's yes and no, because I do think there's a lot of my dad's genetics, but he just happens to be tall, so it works in his favor, right? When you're 6'5", it's really hard to be fat. Yeah. You have to really put in the effort there. And so for him, it's just like, yeah, he's indulges in the way that I do, but he's just shorter than me. And even me, or he's just taller than me. And even me, I'm pretty tall. So I am very lucky in the sense that my weight would look worse if I was shorter.
Right.
That's just the nature of it. I'm not calling shorter people worse looking. I'm saying the way that the proportions are easier on me in that retrospect, that a lot of times when I was even bigger, not as big as this is, when I was smaller but still big, people never saw that. When I would tell them my weight, they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't see it because I'm tall. Like, look, it distributes well. So so genetics a little bit. For me specifically, I don't mind talking about it. I tell everyone I have a condition called PCOS. It's polycystic ovarian syndrome. Most women get diagnosed when they're like 27, 28. I got diagnosed at the fun little age of 13.
Nice.
A little bit early, but PCOS is it's 2/3 of women with PCOS has every comorbidity. So do you know what a comorbidity is? So comorbidity is like everything that is associated with like unhealthy things, right? So a comorbidity means that there are two things that are associated together with a certain unhealthy link. Okay, so like obesity is both associated with diabetes and heart disease, right? Okay, so those are comorbidities. Those are things that you're likely to get if you're obese. So PCOS has a lot of comorbidities, a lot of them. 2/3 of women with PCOS are obese. You know, they also have, we have slow metabolism. That's a big factor, obviously, and our hormones are completely out of whack. Because PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which means my hormones don't work as well. Like it's why I have a deeper voice. It's, and I do have a deep voice. I don't mind saying it. I mean, it's a lot of my features. I wouldn't say, I'm not saying people always like want to get defensive. We can talk about things without it being like, I need to feel bad about it.
Is my face doing something that's...
It's a little bit like, I think if I go further into it, you would have started to be like, no, don't feel that way. But I'm going to go further. And I think it's a natural reaction to what people have in this world. If I walk into a room and I go, oh, I look fat. I'm fat. The reaction people have, the people who aren't fat, who are like, no, fat is, it's a word, right? I hate, people want to use it in a malicious intent, but it's a word. It's like when people use the word black and they say blacks, and you know they're being racist. Like, it's when people use fat in a certain context to make it negative, but the fact of the matter is we've used fat to describe a certain thing, and that's what it is, right? You're a bigger person, we can say fat, we can say obese, we can say overweight, but I'm not saying that, I don't think me changing the word is going to
affected.
Like I have a friend who has a joke about saying the word homeless versus unhoused, and she's like, it doesn't change the fact that they don't have a home, right? Like, you know, like that's the thing what I'm saying. Like it's like the concept of the word doesn't change because I'm using it.
So in this conversation that we're having right now, you would prefer at this point, you understand I'm speaking in good faith, and you would prefer I not pussyfoot around, for lack of a better word.
Oh, no. I just meant, like, I hadn't even said it yet, but I was saying the things that I might start to talk about, you might feel like, oh, like, you know, you don't need to say those things about myself. And it's, again, they're more facts than me being like, I'm a gross, disgusting human. Yeah, if I say that about myself, I would hope you would be like, no, Victoria, you're not a gross, disgusting human. That's that kind of reaction. What I'm saying, certain things about being fat and being this.
Very literal.
What I'm saying, being fat, or the fact, because when I said I had a deeper voice, you kind of made a face, and I was like, no, for a woman, I have a deeper voice. I do. It's just a fact of the matter. It's not something I'm not trying to be a defender of it. The amount of people who called me sir, it's just a fact. It's just a fact.
Jesus Christ.
Like, you don't understand. Like, I have a joke that I used to say when I was first starting comedy. I was still working at the hospital. I had this joke that was like, you know, I had a great day today because a guy called me, you know, one of my patients told me I had the most beautiful smile in the world, which is great. But then a pharmacist called me sir 3 times. So kind of a mixed bag of a day. But that's what I'm saying, where it's like there are certain things that ends up happening because there are just certain ways about my features that has to do with the PCOS. That's what I'm saying. It's a link to a medical thing. I have PCOS is associated with high T, meaning as a woman, I have lower estrogen and higher testosterone. That is an association of PCOS. A lot of women reproductive issues are associated with that. I'm not the only comedian who has it. If you talk to Lucia, she talks about it as well. Lucia is also someone who has a deeper voice association because again, it's the high T. So the reason that goes back to the all this with being fat is because my experiences have been part of the reason that I've experienced some of the worst of my racism, I think, is because I'm a large black woman. And I'm not talking fat. There's a difference. I'm 5'11" and fat. So I look people like to say threatening, right? That idea. Whereas I am this soft little like Kawiki girl. People are always like, you one comic said to me a while ago, they're like, I've never not seen you wear a dress. And I'm like, I think at some point in my life, I associated it with I wanted to be so associated with femininity that dresses became a thing. And I love dresses. You won't see me wear pants. I'm only wearing pants today because it's cold out. And I'm still wearing technically a dress. You know, I'm just wearing leggings underneath. But the fact of the matter is, I love wearing dress. I love that feeling being feminine, like the femininity of it, because people have often taken that away from me. And so that sucks. And that comes with the being bigger thing. Because if you look at, it's crazy that we let people bully people the way they did when younger. Because if you look at me now versus where I was when I was a kid, is like, they were calling that version of me. If you put a picture of me like that and picture me like this version of me is the fat one. But they were still calling that version of me, who was wearing like a size 14, which is normal now, calling that bitch fat, right? So that doesn't help, but all the other things also don't help, right? Slow metabolism, PCOS, all these things were things that I had to learn about at a much younger age, which, like, literally my doctor said, you can't eat like your friends are going to be able to eat, literally, to me as a 12-year-old, saying, you know, because I wasn't, my parents, people always think when you are bigger that it comes from your home. It absolutely does not. If anything, I might have eaten out of the house so much because my mom was so healthy. And, you know, I grew up, I wouldn't call, my mom is kind of an almond mom. I wouldn't say she's really an almond mom. She's just someone who lacks the need to eat it. Like, she literally be fine with eating 1 grain of rice a day. And she's like, she'll often be like, oh, I didn't even think about eating today. And I'm like, that's a crazy thing, because I've been thinking about it a lot for both of us. Like, that's wild that you said that. And it is the same thing where it's less like Ron, because I will say it's actually a mix of both. My family is weird. The one thing I will say is, when it came to like holidays and situations, I was never bullied a lot in that situation. I think the only person who had struggled with it was my mom. And that's only because, and I, as an adult now, I can understand her standpoint, where she's like, I was so obsessed with getting you, even though again, at that age, I wasn't that big. So maybe if we would have stopped that talk, I would have been okay. But she's like, I was afraid for how the world would treat you. And that's an agreeable point, because baby, that's a fair point, Tia. That one you got, because the world is horrible. And the fact of the matter is, people are always so obsessed with the fact of saying, well, it's just because you're fat. No, but the fact that I'm fat shouldn't affect you. It's not like, we're not you don't have to, it's the difference of like the way that being fat, whether, I mean, there are certain people that you might say it is a choice to a certain extent, right? But if you think being fat is so unhealthy and so horrible in that way, what do you think bullying does to it? You think it makes it easier to try to be better? Because when you are horrible to someone who's in a bad place, no matter what their vice is, do you think they're going to get away from that vice? Mm-hmm. Like, do you think no bullied fat person has ever lost weight for that reason? And I'm also not the person who harps on a lot. If you go into my comedy, all to say about being fat is jokes. I'm not like, I'm happy that there are women online who are like, I'm big and I'm okay with myself and all that. I don't even say that. I'm just trying to exist in people still. Like when my Jared Leto joke went viral, you know, it got like, it's probably got 1.7 million views. It's got a lot of views. The amount there, it was nothing. My weight is not mentioned at all in that joke. Mm-hmm. It's just a very funny joke about how much I hate Jared Leto. But if you go through that comment section, that's what I'm saying. My existence is an issue. Why? I don't know. I don't do anything to you. I'm not asking for favors. I don't do anything. But it's just the existence of me. It's the bullying a fat woman who, like, I'm not even trying to date you and be like letting me know that you want to, like, things like that. Me existing, and that leads to what I call my healthy version of agoraphobia. I like staying inside because I know that I won't be bullied. Mm-hmm. I think that that's healthy. I don't like, people are like, oh, you say at home a lot. I'm like, yeah, it's not because I'm agoraphobic. I'm not like afraid of the world. I'm afraid of how horrible people are.
I understand that completely. That part of it. I think.
And my apartment's fun.
Yes.
I got games. Every streaming service. I don't even need to see people, honestly. It's not a good. I mean, honestly, it's probably not great, but it's good enough.
If I'm to speak to why people do that, I think it is a form of projection.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Well, I'll speak to my version of it because I've done that in a way that is, I have an issue of telling other people what to do because it's not my love language, but it's how I express care. Yeah. And I found myself having this internal issue where when I would see somebody overweight, I would never like vocalize it, but internally I would start getting judgmental. And I realized that it's because I'm afraid of becoming overweight. Yeah. So I'm seeing, and I do the same thing with when someone says, I want to be a stand-up comedian. I immediately think, oh, okay, then you gotta do stand-up because when I said I wanted to, I didn't do it. That's how we're
different, because when someone says they want to be a stand-up comedian, I'll be like, why? Think about that for a minute. What got you here?
Yeah.
You should be telling them the same thing.
I have a question, and that is there anything tangible that can be done about the weight, or is this thing that what was it called again?
PCOS.
PCOS. Is PCOS a point where it's like it just is what it is? If I'm blind, no. Okay.
No. And that's the thing, because I'm also someone who, my dad is a cardiovascular surgeon. I am not someone who denies the horrible things that obesity does to your body. I'm not one of those people. I will admit, my whole point is, a lot of times, that's why I said I'm closer to Lexi than I am to Ron. Because at this point in my life, you only know me now. You don't know me when I was a smaller person, even being a bigger person, but smaller, right? It's because right now I'm in a dark time of my life, and that's the problem. So like Lexi, a lot of times it's like that. But I will say PCOS just makes it harder. So what happens when anything makes anything harder? It pushes you back, right? So the combination of PCOS and depression, not a great combination, maybe. Those are two things that are working in favor. And honestly, being fat might just be a slow suicide attempt. We don't know yet. But there are times in my life, like even now, and I think the issue that I run into a lot, I will never be someone who will allow being fat to make me immobile. So once I reach a point where that's an issue, like recently, I was like, oh, my leg hurts. That scared me. So I started swimming laps again. Because I hate the stereotype. The one stereotype I will not agree with is that I'm inactive. You can ask anyone. When Jamie and I are on trips together, I go to the gym every day. I love being active. I'll be honest, when I'm big, it's big in eating right usually. But then there are these moments, like now, where it's just not. Like even now, Lizzo's a perfect example, right? Look at Lizzo right now. She looks amazing.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, she's still a big woman. Yeah. That's still a big, because naturally, again, that's something, maybe not something you should tell a 13-year-old, but again, another thing one of my doctors told me was like, you're always going to be a big person. Like I was already tall, I was already going to be tall, and I was already going to be chubby. Like there are people who are what we consider this new category that we're allowing to exist called mid-size, where we're not, it's more a thing for women than it is men, but there's this group of women who don't consider themselves, your regular sized body. And even for me, my regular sized body is still going to be bigger than a lot of the people, but I do not deny the fact that I am overweight or in those issues. For me right now, it was definitely more of, okay, if I don't get my mental health under control, that thing's not going to change. That's not going to change. And not saying that I ignore it. Right now, I'm currently, right now, like I don't drink alcohol. I'm keto. I do everything that I could. I just got back into swimming 3 times a week. Like, that's the problem that I have with the way that society treats people, because you have no idea what they're doing right now. And you would never, if you saw a drunk on the side of the street, and I'm not saying it is an addiction, right? Everything is a vice, because a lot of times when people have weight loss surgery, they have something called addiction transfer. Yeah, addiction transfer is basically a lot of people. There's a statistic about, I don't know, 40% might be high, but there is a statistic of the amount of people who have gastric bypass, all these things, and because eating wasn't just eating, it was an addiction. Addiction transfer, it just transfers to a new thing. So for a lot of them, I personally know someone who had this experience where they went from eating a lot to then becoming an alcoholic. It's just addicting transfer. It's just something else that is a vice, right? So that's the issue that I have with the way that society handles it, is the necessary of, there is a mental component here that you all don't want to discuss. There are people who I was not enabled. There's no one around me. I think it was the opposite. Once I had an opportunity to get certain types of things, I maybe indulge a little bit too much, but then at the same time, that creates a joy response, right? Even though, like Ron was saying, it's a happiness thing when he's in happy situations. For me, it's more of, if I'm in a dark place, that's what I want to do. Like me and my friends used to do, like, and again, I was smaller then, but me and my friends would go to, because I've had different times. Like during in college, I lost like 150 pounds. I had my cousin died, and then I gained it back. I was big again, and then I was big again until I came here in Chicago, and then again, lost another 100 pounds. And then, and since then, and that was like 2019, I started, like, I've never been like this big, but it was and that's why I'm a very honest person. I don't think a lot of people like to talk about. I don't mind talking about it, because I'm not someone who denies things in my life. I just think that should not be anyone else's issue but mine own to go through, right? And to me, as a human being, I'm not someone who denies the issue. Like, you may talk to someone who wants to be like, well, I can eat whatever I want, it's fine. I don't think that. I don't think that at all, because for me, I do want to live. It's not a thing. It's more of, again, that I need to find a healthier way to handle the things that I go through. Using food as an addiction is a part of it. It's something that everyone loves. Food as a thing, and we as a society treat it like a reward already. That's for everyone, right? What happens on a birthday? What happens on a class party gets a pizza party. You get a cake, you get a cupcake. Like, we as a society have treated it like a reward, not just for fat people, but everyone. So when people indulge in that, and then again, there are some body mechanics. I don't use it as an excuse. The minute you said PCOS, is that the only thing? I said, no, it's not. And I'm okay to admit that. I'm not someone who's saying that, but it is something that makes it 10 times as hard as me to do it. So sometimes when I start to plateau, like, I've definitely weight lost and I've gone down, and I was, like I said, 2019-ish was the last time the pandemic hit, and then I started to gain weight again, and there was just no activity, and then just kind of been up and down. I've had a lot of traumas, and that also makes it harder. The world existing in the way that it is very hard for everyone. So, and I think that, like I said, the bullying, all the things that come with it, the territory, of course it makes you hate yourself more, but it doesn't make you want to get healthier. No. Someone making me feel worse about myself has never made me want to do anything, ever. I think it applies to anyone.
I agree. I think, well, I have 2 things. I'll have a comment on this, and then I have one last question. The comment on it is, few comments. The first thing is, thin does not necessarily mean healthy.
Well, that too, because again, when you look at the way that we treat ED in this country, on that side of it, what obesity is also ED. Yep. People want to associate ED with just the skinny side. And you're absolutely right. The skinny side is just as unhealthy. Yeah. I've watched that happen. We've talked about the horribleness of it. There's a celebrity right now that people are very concerned about. And the concern for her versus the way that Lizzo was treated, where it's not a concern factor. There was a few celebrities who were saying, oh, this and that, you just need to be healthier, whatever. But it was mostly just everyone hating on the visibility of it. And that's the issue I have, where it's like, and also when you're skinny, when it's in the opposite, it's more of a concern of nature. It doesn't come off as like making jokes, making funny. It's more of like, oh my God, there's something wrong. You don't go through a comment section of a fat person and never see that. They'll say something like, oh my God, how are they living? You don't say that to a person you see that's ultra skinny. Like, there's this girl on TikTok, I don't know, I think she's gotten banned several times because of how skinny she is and how it's promoting ED. And it's like, that is the only person that I've ever seen, like, take it to that extreme. But also, again, her comments are never like, wow, I could never, like, it's never the negativity. It's more of like, hey, you got to get through this. You got, like, there's something wrong with you. You need help. Whereas, like, we don't treat, like, you don't talk to a cigarette smoker or an alcoholic the way that we talk to fat people. and then expect, you make it a whole thing. It's one of the, people say, oh, it's one of the last groups that can be made fun of. Whatever. I don't like to harp on it not because I don't think it's true. It's because I know people don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear that I get bullied. Fine. I don't say it to you. I don't talk about it a lot. I don't care about it. But the fact of the matter is, you don't have to associate with it either. You don't have to look at my content. You don't have to see me. Those are choices you have to make. I'm trying to be a better person as I go, but you have no idea what any person's personal experience is. And that's something people are more able to understand when it's everything but obesity. Like everything else can be seen as, oh, that's a problem. It's this and that. No, if it's obesity, you're a sick human, you're lazy, you don't care about your life, you want to die. Or not even that. That's not even the thought. That should be one of the thoughts. Someone with obesity might want to die. There's literally, I remember I was watching that episode of it was Catfish, and it was like a guy who was like, he was like 800 pounds or something. And yeah, that was one of the things he's like, I don't want to live. Like, he's like, did you ever think that was a possible? That's talking from like, no, you guys just think it's like this fat, lazy girl. Like, you can't imagine the mindset of someone who might be going through something. Of course, there are people like, I was just watching, there's also these people see on TLC and all these people who, are actually just being enablers and having horrible situations. But that's not everyone. Just like black people aren't a monolith, just like women aren't a monolith, fat people are not a monolith either. We're not all experiencing anything. Just like someone, my dad will cut out beer and lose 40 pounds, bitch. I don't even drink beer. I've never touched. I cut out alcohol for 2 months. Nothing. And I was drinking decently. Like, so it's just like, the fact of the matter is there are certain bodies in certain ways and things that'll just happen. And because my metabolism had been this way since I was 13, it was hard to navigate. College was hard to navigate. Situations where everyone was doing something that I wanted to do, I continued to do it. And then, it just was something that, where, again, you don't learn the factors, you don't learn the idea of healthy eating or any of that, or the mindset of eating. Dieting is not something we should do. It's not dieting, right? It's a lifestyle change. The difference of being like, that's another thing I had a problem with. Like I said, I have dropped 150 pounds, but then I didn't learn any habits. I just was on a fad diet that worked until it couldn't work anymore because my body had wanting certain things. Like, there's so much in that conversation, but I've never been one to be like, this isn't a thing. This isn't a problem. I've never been someone like, I'm body acceptance versus body positivity. It's just like, that's two different movements. Body positivity is just being like, oh, everything's maybe what it. No, I'm accepting of the body I'm in, and I'm going to live my life. If I stop living my life, I think that's worse. I think that would make me fall into a darker place. What I'm saying is that I have enough awareness to know where there's a problem, and if I ever got to a point where I felt it affected my life wholeheartedly, that's always a stop. So for me recently, I was feeling that way. I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm getting more active. I feel like things are becoming a bit more of a struggle. This is a problem for me. So I got back into exercise. Even though I was in a dark depression, because for me, that's always the thing. I always am going to want to travel the world. I'm going to want to do things. I want to be active. I'm not someone, as much as I joke around about being in my apartment, if people give me an opportunity to go out and hang out, I'll be right there. If you say, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to go to an art collector, we're going to do this, we're going to go to hang out here, I would love to do that. I love all those things. And if whenever I get to those points where I feel like my mobility has changed, that to me is an eye-opener. Maybe that's not for everyone, or maybe not everyone experiences that. But if I ever feel like a way where I'm feeling inferior and I can feel it, that's something. So that's, to end my whole thing about what it is. I am not, acceptance is what it is. I understand where I'm at. And then I also am understanding the mental health factor that needs to go into place. What I'm working on now, I am in food therapy. Yeah, I am in food therapy. That's a thing. So again, people don't realize, my biggest point is always like, you have no idea what someone's trying to do or where they're at in their journey. You seeing me on the street one day has no idea where I was 10 days ago. Maybe I'm 15 pounds lighter, heavier, whatever. You have no idea what I'm doing in that 10-second interval where you're looking at me like, how could someone look like this? Yeah. Sorry, I don't know how long that was a good one. Was, but
that was a really good one.
I got all the, if you don't stop me, it's going to keep going.
You ready for the last question?
I am.
Okay. So, pretend the camera is you 5 years from now.
Ugh, I hate these things.
Yeah. If you could say anything to yourself 5 years from now, what would you say?
Okay, I'm going to do this without crying. First off, stop crying all the time. It seems like that's something you should look into. I hope you are happier. I hope that you've been able to hone in on your best self and be the person that you can be, that other people see in you, because if you don't, you're going to crash. So, yeah, I hope that you have moved on in life and that you have realized the trauma you've experienced and grown from it, and that you are living your best life. And that, I mean, just that you're not so conscious of all the horrible things, and if you are conscious of them, that you're not as sad about it. So the world is a horrible place. It is. And I hope that you finally carved out a little piece of happiness. But it's only 5 years, so we'll re-up in 10. Because I can't imagine that it's that much better, if I'm being honest. I sound super positive. I hope when you send this video back that yours is a better answer to this situation, baby. But yeah, I hope you still have a building with a pool. That's the most important part. You need the pool and the sunlight. That's it. If you have those things, you're good.
We're going to take this picture.
Oh, we're doing it right now. Okay.